Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kentucky Small Business Development Center's weekly webinar. We're certainly glad you're here today. So we'll allow a few minutes for everyone to kind of join us today. And as that happens, I'd like to share a little bit about the Kentucky Small Business Development Center program. As the only statewide, nationally accredited program that provides entrepreneurial and business development services, the Kentucky SBDC plays a vital role in the Commonwealth's economic development by assisting entrepreneurs at every stage of their business life cycle. For almost 20 years, the Kentucky Small Business Development Center has assisted emerging and growing businesses by providing professional expertise, tools, and information necessary to make sound business decisions in a complex and ever-changing marketplace. We do this at no cost to you, our clients, thanks to the U.S. Small Business Administration, who co-sponsors our program, which is then administered by the University of Kentucky, who also partners with regional universities, colleges, and local economic development agencies. We're also part of a national network, America's SBDC, with over 1,000 centers across the nation. To learn more, please visit kybizhelp.com. There you'll find additional resources to help start, fund, and grow your business. If you'd like to request personal assistance, please email us at info@kybizhelp.com or give us a call at 1-888-475-7232. And just a reminder, a recording of today's webinar will be emailed to you later on this afternoon. And if you look to the right of your screen, you'll find the chat feature. If you have any questions for us today, you can post those there and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. So if you wouldn't mind, as always, please try out the chat feature and say hello. Let us know where you are joining us from and maybe give us a quick weather report. It's on everybody's radar today. So today we've got a great guest and someone I'm so happy to have, Dave Young. He is one of the partners in the Wizard of Ads, and I have been following these guys for a number of years, and they are just phenomenal as far as putting together content and this type of digital marketing. So Dave, welcome. I'm really excited to see you.
Thank you. Is that it? We're ready to go?
If you're ready to go, I can't wait any longer. Actually,
I did my weather report in the chat, so it's
excellent.
I feel guilty that I'm in Tucson.
I know.
I spent 50 years in Nebraska in the radio business. So, I would be the one that was out helping the town just kind of deal with stuff like this. And I sold my snow blower and my lawnmower and moved south, and I'm loving it. So it might get up to 64 today, and I might need to reach for a long sleeve shirt. That's about it.
That's right. Rub it in for us there. Thanks.
That's my goal. So pull a chair up. I should have put a picture of a campfire or a fireplace on here to just keep people warm. I appreciate everybody being here, and nice to meet you all virtually. And so content's the topic. I started this company, Shortcut Content, as a branch of my consulting practice about 10 years ago. And the reason that I started is because I had clients that were struggling with creating good content for their websites. And in the meantime, we've created thousands of blog posts and podcasts and videos using a technique that I'm going to describe to you a little bit later. It's something you can do yourself if that's what you want to do to create content. So the first question is, and it seems pretty basic, right? What is content? Seems like a pretty easy question. I've got a really loose definition. Content is simply information. I guess we can all go home now. I think a deeper question is the question, what is good content? And I would say that it's anything that adds value to somebody's life. And that can mean a lot of things. It can be educational. It can be humorous. It can be thought-provoking, even aesthetically pleasing. When I think about that, I think about like the Hubble Space Telescope, right? If none of us are astronomers, we might not feel like that space telescope is giving us anything that's got some information. But if you ever look at one of their deep field photographs where it's got thousands and thousands of galaxies in it, I can't really decode that into any kind of meaningful information, but it makes me feel good. I find it pleasing to look at. And so that makes a photograph from the Hubble Space Telescope a piece of content. It enriches my life because I enjoy it. So to me, good content is almost always entertaining, or at least informative in an aha way, a way that somebody that's being informed by it goes, "Oh, I'm so glad I know this now," right? That puts a little bit of emotion into it. The kind of content that's not entertaining is content that people tune out to. You snooze, you wander away, and you can do that on purpose. In fact, I had this thought this morning, and I added this little story to this presentation because I think it is kind of meaningful. If you ever have trouble sleeping, right? You try different things and you try to go to sleep faster. And one of my kids actually recommended a podcast that's called Bedtime Stories, Nothing Much Happens. And I don't know why I couldn't sleep last night. I had a talk today in front of a bunch of people in Kentucky and around the country. And I thought, well, I've been, naturally thinking about that. And so I thought, well, I'm going to try these bedtime stories. And these are actually the kind of stories where nothing much happens. And you feel okay going to sleep because that was their intention, right? And the problem is there's so much content that people put out that accomplishes the same thing accidentally, and you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that your content is actually designed to keep the brain engaged and to keep people emotionally involved in your content. So I thought the bedtime stories, in fact, if you do have insomnia, check it out. I really enjoyed it. I don't remember the last half of whatever story it was that I listened to. I don't remember it. I fell asleep because it was that boring. But it was nicely read. It was beautifully presented. So there's your insomnia tip for today. What forms does content come in? Now, I love this image because all of those old icons are what I grew up with. And if you're as old as me, you grew up with them. And they're all now digital. And they're on our computers and on our phones and everywhere else. But spoken words, whether that's something that you listen to that's a recording or something over the radio or the television, a movie, all of those things are content. They're the carriers of content. And as I said, most of it's digital these days. There's only one that's actually not shown on this page that's something like print, that's still content, and it's still a message that you can actually hold in your hand. And for some, that's still a great tactic. In fact, the emptier our mailboxes get, the more you can stand out by actually mailing something to somebody. We won't get deep into that, but it's something to consider as you think about getting your message in front of people. So we know what content is. Content's information. What is content marketing? Well, content marketing is just any content that's used in an effort to move somebody closer to a purchase. So I include paid advertisements in my definition of content marketing. And most people wouldn't do that. They'd say, oh, well, you're running a radio ad. That's not content marketing. And I think, well, it actually is. It's a 30-second message. It's got information. It's got something that I want you to remember. I think that's content marketing. And I had to pay to get it in front of you, to get it in your way. And so by not including it, it seems like people want to make content marketing to be some kind of magic free ride to increase sales, right? If you build it, they will come. And sadly, that unicorn just doesn't exist. Content costs time. Content costs money to produce. You can spend more time. You can spend more money. Those are the two things that you can spend creating content. And my suggestion is you spend whichever one you have more of. So if you don't have a lot of money, you can spend time building content that people will engage in and share with other people. If you don't have time, but you've got some money, you can spend the money to have the same kind of content built for you. Paid ads, typically content that's not going to be consumed in any other way than by forcing people to consume it by getting it in their way, right? If you're driving down the road in your car and a commercial comes on the radio. Some people tune to another station, but most of us go, well, that's the price of free radio. I'm going to listen to the ad, or I'm going to, maybe that's when I make a phone call, but you got to pay to get that ad in front of people. Nobody's going to willingly consume a bunch of advertisements if they don't have to. Probably the only exception to that, somebody's already probably thought of it, is like Super Bowl Sunday. Right. We all kind of, especially if you're in the advertising business, you kind of anticipate the ads. In fact, that's usually the only reason I watch the game. But paid ads, typically not things that people volunteer to get in front of. You can broadly separate content into original content versus curation. Now, curation is an interesting strategy for content. It's what Facebook trains us to do, and we're already pretty good at it. We see something and we think, oh, I agree with this, and we click the share button. Or we see something that we disagree with, and maybe we explain why we disagree with it before we click the share button. Before Facebook, before the internet, it was you'd run into people at the coffee shop or wherever you ran into people, and you'd tell them something, right? We would tell each other stories. We would curate content for our friends. When you're telling a joke, you're curating content, unless you wrote the joke, and then you're sharing original content. So if you don't have time to create original content, curation can be better than nothing. And I think you can make it better by actually adding to it before sharing it out. So do that little bit of explaining, right? I love this article because it says this. I think one of the other important things about whether you're creating original content or curating content is to make sure that you do it on a platform that you own. So what I mean by that, your own website or your own email list that you send things out to, but letting your original content live on your own website is great, because when you're at the mercy of a company like Facebook, everything that you've put to use can fall apart when they change the rules. Years ago, a lot of business owners found that out. They had Facebook pages that they spent a lot of time on, and people were engaging with it and sharing information. And then Facebook decided to really go hard into the advertising business, and they quit sharing your Facebook page, your business page's information to all the people that liked it. And so since you don't own Facebook, you don't have any control of that. And they walled it off and said, well, if you want this in front of your fans, you've got to pay us. And so you can do that, but that content then still lives on Facebook. So if you can get people to move off of Facebook onto your site by sharing links and things like that, then they at least have a chance to consume more of your content. Once I'm on your site, I can look at more things that you've done. So I think make sure you have your own website that can become the hub of the content that you're going to create, so that you don't lose all your momentum when the gods of the internet change the rules. When you produce content about your customers' needs, you can deepen relationships. Producing content about your industry can get you recognized as a leader in it. Back in the dark ages before the internet, I actually owned a small radio station. And at that time, I subscribed to a printed newsletter. It was called the Small Market Radio Newsletter. I know, really an original title, right? It turns out it was published by a guy just like me who ran a little tiny radio station in a different podunk town from mine. And he was making really good money on his newsletter. And it was hand typed and then photocopied, stapled together, and a stamp stuck on it, thrown in the mailbox. And then he started making even better money hosting 2-day seminars for small market radio punks. So he was just curating things and sending them out. He wasn't sending out, original wisdom. He was just saying, hey, Dave over in Nebraska tried this promotion and it worked really well for him. And he was just sharing things like that, just curating. So who should use content marketing? Everybody uses content marketing, and everybody should use content marketing, but you're already doing it. Some businesses simply can't count on their content being shared freely, and they're going to have to pay to get it in front of people. It's called advertising, I mentioned before. Unless you've got amazing content, advertising is a lot faster and more reliable. And I'm not going to go too deep into advertising, but it's a core part of what we do at Wizard of Ads. And the thing that good ads share with good content is they should be informative, they should be entertaining, they should be persuasive, and they should be memorable. And bad ads are just like bad content. They're easily ignored and unremarkable. So when we talk about who, it's useful to categorize people, to talk about strategies that they could use. I believe there are two types of people in the world. Those who break things down into two categories and those who don't. And I think there are a lot more categories than two. I want to focus on at least three. So can we broadly categorize people into groups? Now, this first one, I put the word cringe on here is because I don't really like the term thought leader. I think it's kind of cringe-worthy, especially when people call themselves thought leaders, right? We think, oh, they're kind of a little full of it. But we know who we're talking about when we say thought leader, right? We're talking about somebody that's an innovator, somebody that's an industry leader, a pioneer in their field. And the kind of content that works best for a thought leader, they all have a book, right? You need to write a book. You should blog long, thoughtful pieces, essays that share your theories and your discoveries and the things that you're working on. They make great podcasts. The biggest mistake I've seen some thought leaders make in venturing into podcasting is they often think that to get attention in a podcast, they should interview somebody else, right? So instead of being a thought leader, they turn into interviewers, and they wonder why the attention is never on them. It's because what they should do is find somebody to interview them every week for a podcast. That way it's their content. They're the ones that are the thought leaders. So that's what they should be doing. Video podcasts work pretty well for this type of category. Now, the interesting thing is you may not make money from a book or a podcast or a video series, but you might make money because of it. And we've long held this opinion, especially about business books and nonfiction books. The thing is that content can lead to other opportunities. So speaking or consulting. As an example, we have a client who's really kind of a big name in the air conditioning world, and he's growing by leaps and bounds. Some of it fueled by great advertising, and some of it's fueled by buying up smaller competitors in his markets and the markets that he wants to enter. And he writes books and he gives interviews because it helps him get noticed in his field. And he does more speaking because of that. And then he meets people in his industry. And a lot of the people that he meets in his industry are business owners that want to sell their business someday and retire. Well, guess who gets first shot at buying them? So his content, the fact that he's out talking and speaking and doing videos, it gets him more opportunities. So the challenge, though, is that being a thought leader in your category, if you're a small business owner, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be considered a thought leader among the customers in your industry. So that thought leadership can create opportunities for you, but it may not help cement you to the people that you might consider your customers. It might be more industry related. So a technique that has been pretty successful for business owners who are just good at what they do is what I would call a master technician. And whether you're in a technical field or not, I mean, you could be a mortgage broker and fit into this category. When I think about a master technician, I think about somebody like the team on This Old House, right? You've got the plumber and you've got the carpenter and you've got the HVAC guy, and they all are deep experts in the field that they're on the show to provide expertise on, right? So if you were one of those people, whether it's, like I said, like a mortgage broker, or you're a realtor that does more than just um, the least you can do as a realtor, you can share content that tells people how to. So a lot of the content that a master technician should be creating is just about any blog post or podcast episode that starts out with the words "how to" or "why," and you can write all kinds of content on how to share what you know, share what you've learned, and people are looking for answers to those kinds of things. You can also use a curation strategy to, if you recognize content that somebody else has written that you feel is really good, share that. The challenge for that kind of a strategy is if you're in a non-sexy, what I call a grudge business, a grudge purchase, it can be a challenge just to get your content in front of people. A grudge purchase is something we end up needing to buy, not wanting to buy. So plumbing is a good example of a grudge purchase. Nobody wakes up in the morning going, you know what? I want to find a plumber today. It just doesn't happen. What happens is something else happens. Some event happens in our home, and all of a sudden, we don't want a plumber. We need a plumber, and we need them now. And if nobody's looking for your wisdom, except people that want to do it themselves, like plumbing, then nobody wants a plumber. So if a plumber creates do-it-yourself content, all of a sudden this event happens in my house, and I got to find out, how do I clean the trap under my kitchen sink? If you have content on that and you're in my market, I've got a pretty good shot at finding it, because Google knows all the things that you've put on your website, right? So I can do a Google search, and then your DIY content can explain when it's a good time to do it yourself and when it's a good time to call in the pros. So if I'm trying to clean that kitchen drain, just about anybody could learn to disassemble and reassemble that U-shaped trap underneath your sink and figure out if the clog is in there or not. But if the clog is deeper than that, you probably ought to call a plumber before you create a nightmare by making the problem bigger. And so that gets to be a little bit of a challenge, because if you're in one of those businesses, just people aren't really looking for you till that moment of need pops up. But if you can anticipate that moment and create content around that moment, what are the issues that people call and need help with? Create content around that so that when they start looking for solutions to what you do, they'll find you. And the really cool part about that is even if you're a plumber and you're creating content on your own website and it feels like nobody's watching, you can count on this. Google is paying attention. Your reward might come in the form of better organic ranking for your website and better quality scores for your ads if you're doing things like AdWords. And then when people do find you, the content that you've created will give them confidence that they came to the right place, right? If I go to a local plumber's site and all of a sudden I look and he's got stories about all these different issues that could come up in my house, I have confidence that this is probably the guy that I ought to call to have come over and look at my problem, as opposed to just rolling the dice on, some dude in a truck. And that's what most of them are. So it helps separate you from your competitors in that, no, I'm a master technician. I understand what it means to do this, and I've seen every kind of problem. There's nothing unique in your house that I can't fix. So another type of person that would be a content creator is a storyteller, and this could actually be any kind of business. We all have lots of experiences to share, and so this Storytelling can work for both a thought leader or a technician. And it's more of a technique than a type of person. We all know these people, right? You mention a problem and they start out with their version of once upon a time, right? Well, I remember when, or back in my day, or this one time at this one house. Um, so a podcast that tells those stories can be good. A blog that tells those stories, videos that tell the story about the time, especially if you've got pictures and things like that. And if you really want to go deep into the storytelling um, style, enhanced videos, documentary style, it can be labor intensive. You'd want graphics and good audio and clips, but you can create things that people really get a kick out of and enjoy and want to share. So the challenge is that storytelling is a craft in and of itself. And if you want to get better at it, study the structure of good stories, learn to craft them for stronger impact. And there's a lot of books on storytelling. Just go to Amazon and look for those. Look, and you'll find them. And the big bonus is that people love sharing stories, even if they're disastrous stories, right? So if you told the story about some awful mistake you made when you first started out your business, people would go, "Oh man, yeah, I get that. I'm glad you overcame that." Right? We love stories about people overcoming things. And then just one other storytelling technique that doesn't always seem like a story, but if you're into memes, um, great ways to create short stories and share them. I've got one right at the very end of the presentation that I'll show you. It's a story in and of itself. So if you don't have a grudge business and you've got a great personality, storytelling and sharing experiences can be really valuable. So let's say you're a chef, let's say you run a skydiving company, or you've got a sports bar, anything where people have experiences in your business in and around it. And if you're known for being a lot of fun to be around, and then even if you don't have that kind of a business, but you are that kind of a person, there's not a reason in the world that you shouldn't be making great content, because that is also the content that we crave to share. So video podcasts where you're doing visual storytelling with an emphasis on your experiences. They're great for social media because people love to share fun. It can be a challenge if you're in a boring business. If fun and entertainment, though, are a key to your personality, you should use it. One of my partners actually did a great radio campaign for a financial advisor, right? Boring industry, who happened to be a great harmonica player. And by the way, I don't mean to offend any financial advisors if you're out there. It's not that you're boring. It's that most of us dread sitting around talking about finances because we're not so good at it. But this guy happened to be like a really, really good harmonica player, like blues harmonica. And they used that in the ads, right? It was way more interesting to talk about the harmonica playing financial advisor than just, I'm just another financial advisor like all the other financial advisors. So that's really cool. If you have some aspect of who you are that is maybe a little different or fun or entertaining, don't be afraid to lean on that and share it. And those are actually the easiest pieces of content to share. And you should probably explore some of the newer channels like TikTok if you really have a heart to be fun and entertain and enjoy time with people. You should also invest if you have a business like I was talking about, right? So the experience type business, a fun restaurant, a fun sports bar, some place where people gather to do things that are a lot of fun. Invest in ways to help your customers create great content as well. So put up a background logo so that they can do selfies. Make sure your employees are always offering to take pictures for people. You could even look into having custom filters created for different platforms like Snapchat. Really just do whatever it takes to make it easy for your customers to tell a fun story about time that they spent in your business. So 3 big content questions. And before I get to those questions, I want to rant just a little bit. I can hear some of you saying, well, this is all fine for businesses that sell to consumers, but I'm a B2B company, and things are different when you're selling business to business. First off, B2B, I don't believe in. Businesses don't buy things. People in businesses buy things from people in other businesses. There was a recent study by Forrester that showed that 65% of technology purchase decision makers, so the people buying technology, they felt that they were already getting too much information from marketers. Surprise, surprise. And almost as many thought that what they were getting is useless. Not great news if you're a marketer, but think about that. 65% felt they're already getting too much and that what they are getting is useless. So the problem, I read it a different way. The problem is not too much information from marketers. The problem is too much mumbo jumbo crap from marketers. And the big difference is empathy. So a similar study at LinkedIn of 1,600 business-to-business ads shown to a sample of 6 million people worldwide over the past 4 years, 75% of those ads scored 1 star or less on a system. It's called System 1's Face Trace emotional measurement tool. Right? They're measuring whether these ads had some kind of an emotional response from the people that viewed them. And 75% of them, I'm not saying 75% of them were bad. 75% of them scored 1 star or less out of 5 stars. None of them scored 5. But 3/4 of them were 1 star or less. The ironic part of this is that our job is our most emotional experience, right? People feel they're not allowed to be vulnerable at their job. You're not allowed to admit fear at your job. And the problem is that that filters back into the marketing and the advertising department. And it makes people afraid to do anything that has any kind of emotion. And so we end up with all this business-to-business communication that is just facts and figures and case studies and white papers. And we have to have a good business voice. And that's the part that's the too much marketing information that those other people were talking about in the Forrester study, right? We don't like reading that. It's not fun to create. And so why do it? The really good news is that entertaining and emotion-rich business-to-business content, it will get noticed because it stands out. So don't be afraid to expose yourself to some emotion and vulnerability in business-to-business advertising because it will pay off for you. I promise you that. If you create content that shows that you understand the frustrations and the problems that your customers are facing, you're going to help them bond with you and give you their time. And that's what you want. As the owner of a business, if at all possible, you should become the spokesperson in your content. It will give your content the voice of a person instead of the voice of a company. And whatever that means, right? If your company has a face, it will instantly score higher on empathy. So, okay, I'm not going to rant anymore about that, but business to business needs personality and empathy more so than business to consumer, because the business to consumer already understands that at some level. So these 3 big content questions: how do I spread content? What content should I make? And how do I make good content? And we'll tackle them one at a time. So how do I spread content? Right? Everybody talks about, oh, we got to make a viral video. Well, yeah, there's nobody that can actually just set out to do that and accomplish it. But you can spread it out. You can share things and hope that that happens. The issue here is that there are plenty of sharing tools, and there are plenty of agencies that will share your content. There are automatic tools that let you share one piece of content across multiple platforms, right? It'll blast it onto Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I don't have any favorites. I'm not, you can just do a Google search for social media sharing apps, sharing platforms. Some are free, some cost a bit. They all have their own learning curve. Or you can hire somebody to share your content. I just don't suggest assigning content to a person in your company who already has a full-time job. The problem with that is that one or the other is going to suffer. Either the content's going to suffer, or their other job that you're piling this on top of is going to suffer, and you're just going to end up making somebody sad. And I've seen it happen over and over, even in client businesses, where they say, "Oh, well, Jennifer, our assistant in the admin side, we're going to let her do our social media," and then one or the other of Jennifer's jobs gets the short end of the stick. So I don't recommend doing that. If you're going to do it, get somebody and make it their job. And if you're in an unsexy business, you might have to pay to get your content in front of people. Again, that's where you'd be better off creating content that makes people like you and think of you when they finally need you. Put that kind of content on the radio or on YouTube pre-rolls. Our biggest advice for our clients that just need to they say just get the name out. That's not quite all of it, but a branding style campaign is, the goal is to make people think of you first and feel best about you when they finally need what you do. When they finally go, "Oh my God, I need a plumber. I got one. I'm going to call this guy because I remember his ads and he seems to know what he's doing," right? But if people can't name somebody in your category, then there's room for you. And advertising is probably the best thing you could do. And so on this whole thing about sharing content and spreading it, I don't think it's the biggest challenge in content marketing. Even if you hire somebody to manage your social media marketing and sharing, they're going to come back to you and ask you for content, and they can't share what you don't create. And that's the biggest problem, right? I really don't for the social media sharing kind of stuff. I don't put a lot of my time and effort to help solve that problem, because that problem's been solved so many times, and there's so many ways to share content. But all of the people that share it want you to create it. So then the question becomes, what content should I make? And this was really one of the reasons I started Shortcut Content is, well, we know we want some content on this blog, but what are we going to write? What could we write? People agonize over what to create, and then they end up never creating much of anything. And usually that's because there's too many options, way too many. And the problem is you judge an idea before you write it, and you discard it, you throw it away, and then you pick something else up and you say, "Oh, I'll write about this." And then you go, "Oh, that's not such a great idea." And you throw that away. We've all seen movies where, right, the novelist is sitting down typing and they tear a piece of paper out and they wad it up. And pretty soon they're buried in wads of paper. The good thing about that is you could pick up a piece of paper and look at it again and say, "Well, that was probably a pretty good idea. Maybe I'll write that." In a digital world, you delete it, now it's gone, right? You're never surrounded by a bunch of digital debris, so you lose it all. So one of the things I recommend is you're going to think of things that you could write. You're going to think of them as you're driving. You're going to think of them as you're just eating dinner or taking a shower. You need to find a way to compile that list and keep adding to it. Keep a notebook, a list on your phone where you just keep adding to it. That way, when you actually schedule time to write, you've got a menu of ideas that you can choose from. My brainstorm exercise is a great way to compile your list. And this is what got David's attention when he asked me to speak to you. At Shortcut Content is where this lives. It takes about 45 minutes. So all it is a 6-page PDF and a YouTube video that's about 45 minutes long. And if you follow the instructions, you print out the PDF, in about 45 minutes, you will have a list of 64 topics that you could turn into content right now, because these are all things that you could write. It's just the way the exercise works. The image on this sheet or on this slide are those 6 pieces of paper. It's just blank lined paper, basically. The real trick to it is a little Jedi mind trick that gets you to work really fast. We put an artificial deadline on what you're trying to do, and it works really well. Almost everybody that's ever tried it has loved it. And it's probably, honestly, the best thing I've ever done in my life to help a lot of people. And it's free. So as long as you've got a free hour, you don't need me. You don't need anybody else. You no longer have an excuse like, I don't know what to write ever again. It's at shortcutcontent.com. You'll find it in the menu. I don't need your email address. Everything you need is right there. I highly recommend doing that because that solves the question of what content do I make? So the next question is, how do I make good content? You got your list and it's time to start making content. You just grab an item from your list and you flesh it out into a story. That's it. How do you write? You set a time and you start writing. Just like the exercise, you shouldn't spend a lot of time worrying about the words, just write. A little secret that I discovered is writer's block is not the cause of not writing. It's the result of not writing. If you start writing, you've got just even 2 words on a page gives you a little bit of momentum. And you're saying, okay, great. But what if I'm not a writer? We can handle that too. So a couple of techniques for getting words on a paper. Microsoft Word has a little microphone icon in the tool ribbon. If you click on that button, it starts recording. It's not recording. It's dictation. You can speak a document into existence in Microsoft Word. You just turn on that button and just start talking. It'll get you a first draft, and that's miles ahead of a blank page. And you can edit that draft into something better, or you can hand it off to somebody else to do it. If you don't have somebody on your staff, you can go to sites like Fiverr, Fiverr.com, or look for a local student that wants to improve their writing, and you just hand them this draft and say, can you turn that into a blog post for me? The other thing you could do is record yourself and have it transcribed. And then again, you take that first draft and you can get it edited, have it improved by somebody that can edit it. It's a great way of creating content. And the beautiful part about it is we all find it much easier to speak than write. It's our natural mode of communication. So it's actually the idea behind shortcut content. So if you wanted us to do that for you, I started this business when I had a client who had the same problem. He was a roofer, not a writer, but man, was he a stone cold expert in the roofing business. So we developed a list of topics. And I just started interviewing him. Remember, I was in the radio business. We turned everything we're recorded with really good microphones to start with. And that let us turn it into a podcast. So we just put a little music at the beginning and end of these little interviews. And then we transcribed the podcast, turned it into a written blog post. And eventually we even put a camera in his office and we started putting him on YouTube as well. So in 5 minutes of him answering this question, we could create a video and a podcast episode and a blog post. All he had to do was step in front of the camera and talk about something he already knew really well. We talk at about 150 words a minute. So in 5 minutes, you can spit out 750 words. And a good editor can turn that into a 300 or 400 word blog post in pretty short order. The only bad side of this technique is that it doesn't work if you're not an expert, right? But that's the challenge, right? If you have to pay somebody to go out and do all the research and learn everything that you've learned, it's not a very efficient way. But it works like a charm if you can just start talking about your own business, which is true of most business owners. You're an expert in what you do. So again, you can spend your time creating content or you can spend your money. There's a cost to creating good content. So cornerstone content, when we start talking about what kind of content everybody needs, if you Google the term cornerstone content, you're going to find a whole bunch of articles that explain to you what they mean by cornerstone content. And it's really just that content that every website ought to have, every business ought to have some of this. I think one of the most important is an origin story. Your About Us page needs more than the usual just blah, blah, blah. You need to let us get to know you and tell us why you got into this business. Tell us the story of how you ended up doing what it is you do. Another type of cornerstone content is just explainer content that gets to the core of your business. Don't assume people know everything about what you do. I'll go back to a plumbing shop, for example. What does it take to become a licensed plumber? What's the history of plumbing? How should I choose a plumber? What do I risk if I don't choose a licensed plumber? Help me understand the importance of your business and what you do. You can do some keyword research. So Cornerstone content should help with your search engine optimization. Most small businesses don't need to spend a lot of money on search engine optimization if they focus on good content that relates to their business. So if you can figure out what people are searching for when they're looking for your business, that'll tell you the kind of Cornerstone content you need. And Cornerstone content should be evergreen. That is, it shouldn't expire, right? It should be forever timely. Your origin story, right? That's not going to change. And then you should also think about multimedia. Figure out ways to get your Cornerstone content in text, in video. It should have a lot of images if you can do that. I think the key is you're already creating content. You're already doing it. You do it every day when you answer questions that customers ask. You create content every day when you tell somebody what business you're in. You create content every day when you tell a story about something that happened in the past. You do it every time you train a new employee. And your staff are creating content when they answer questions. One suggestion I've made to clients is they should insist that whoever answers the phone keeps a list of every single question they answer when somebody calls. The answers to those questions should be on your website. And I'm not talking about burying them in a frequently asked questions page. They're good examples of what needs to be included in Cornerstone content. And the more of those questions that you answer on your website, the fewer you'll have to answer in person or over the phone. So you're already creating good content. What you need to do is start saving it. Start saving it so you can use it everywhere. Start that list, do my brainstorming exercise, set aside some time to actually write, or time with your staff to bounce ideas around. You might have a budding social media star in your company. You don't even know it. So this might be a younger person that already understands, how to make a TikTok video and those kinds of things. You just need to find that out. And if you need help with it, I'm here for you. I'd love to help you, whether it's to think through a good strategy or even a full-blown marketing strategy. Wizard of Ads is a 60-person consulting agency. We've got partners in the US and Canada, Australia, Mexico, Guatemala, a few other places. We help owner-operated businesses with advertising, marketing, and content, and a whole bunch more. And during the pandemic, I've been offering free 90-minute sessions with business owners. It's not a sales pitch, and it's free. It helps you understand the way we think about marketing, and it helps us understand what you're trying to accomplish with your business. And I'm happy to do one for you. We just need to get it scheduled. So if you want to reach out, feel free. Shoot me an email. You could text me at that number or call. If I can answer, I will. And that's it. Well, I'll put that slide back up, but I promised you one meme. So let's look at that. There it is, a plumbing meme. It's a story.
That's all right.
So I'll leave that one up for long enough for people to write it down.
Definitely.
David, are we still here?
We are here, and tell you what, I mean, everyone is really appreciative and complimentary of what you shared with us today. And I just want to say we have people from all over the world today have logged in, which is we usually get some people from Canada and Mexico, but the folks from Kuwait, hello, in South Korea, hello, awesome that you guys joined us today. So I just want to say, Dave, that I'm glad you shared the Shortcut Blogger tool. That I mean that. When and it kind of just for me to rant a little bit, when I kind of stumbled across you, what you early on when you were talking about, the cringeworthy thought leaders, in my mind, when I saw that and got engaged with what you guys were putting out, to me, you guys were the thought leader way up on this giant, pedestal of a hill, which made me really, focus in on what you guys were doing and So
I appreciate that. I guess my cringe is when I see somebody beating their chest and declaring themselves the thought leader.
Yeah.
Right.
But
it's something other people should think about you, I guess.
yeah. So as soon as we get done today, I encourage everyone watching to go and try that out. It will blow you away. It is just the most fantastic thing ever for content creation. So,
and if I always tell people, if you don't have a hand cramp by the time you're done, you weren't working hard enough.
It was, yeah, it's just amazing. So
well, thank you.
I'm glad you shared that with everybody. Let's see. Let's just jump right in and quit wasting time, because a lot of people are asking questions. So Morgan's got a long question, and I was kind of excited to ask her question to you. So she says, as a content creator yourself, marketing on behalf of clients, which is what she does, how do you accomplish a consistent authenticity every time when there's no collaboration and you're entirely responsible for the relevance, tone, appearance, messaging, etc., and doing so for multiple businesses?
I think the key to that is you've got to find a way to get the business owner involved, or a person from there. Like the worst thing in the world is when a client just says, Dave, I need you to create some blog posts for us. And I'm like, really? What makes you think I'm qualified to write plumbing blog posts? I always go back to plumber. It seems like that's a lot of my clients these days. But I'm not going to write plumbing blog posts because I'm not a plumber, right? But I will help you write them if you're a plumber by interviewing you, right? So Morgan, I think the way to do it is just say, hey, can I get like 10 minutes of your time? Let's jump on Zoom. Zoom is I think one of the big cool things about the new pandemic Zoom generation that we're in is, man, if you can get your client on a Zoom call for 10 minutes, there's a record button, right? And if you know what the topic is that you want to write on, but you just don't know exactly what they'd say, ask it to them in the form of a question and let them answer. And now you've got content, and it's authentic, right? That meets that authenticity checkbox that you asked about, Morgan. And honestly, I find it more engaging and more fun than doing research to write things for other people. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that was good.
I think when you get it in their words, that takes care of the relevance, the tone, the appearance. It takes care of so many things, because the source material coming from the business owner or the expert lends itself to that.
Yeah, sounds like that'd be a great way to kind of force a little bit of a collaboration also. This sounds like that's part of the problem. Mm-hmm. So when you create content, is there like a certain length of words? I mean, what's the target? You know, if somebody that's going to sit down and start, let's just say, working on a blog post.
If you ask 6 content marketers, you'll probably get 6 different answers. I think if you're one of those thought leader type things, probably longer content than shorter. If I'm telling you 3 things to do to keep your kitchen garbage disposal happy, I probably don't need more than 500 words for that, right? I could probably do it in 3 pictures. The service that we do, kind of the base service at Shortcut Content, where people pay us to do this, is a 5-minute interview for each blog post. And so, like I said, we talk at about 150 words a minute. So we're going to get a 750 word transcript out of that, and a good editor can trim that down to a 300 or 400 word blog post. If you want a longer post, then do a longer interview. Yeah. That's the approach I take. It needs to be long enough to accomplish what you set out to do with it.
Yeah. Let's see. So I guess, just remind everybody, shortcutcontent.com is where the blogging tool is. And again, I can't say enough good things about that. So let's put together a plan here, Dave. Let's just say I go and put my list together using that tool. There's a lot of options. I mean, what would you recommend for somebody that is at ground zero? They've got their list that they've just used your tool for to generate. What would you recommend where would they start? What's the next steps?
Well, I think it just depends on what your chops are for writing. If you're already a pretty decent writer, then pick one of those topics and have at it. It solves the big problem of, well, I don't know what to write. Right. Well, now you've got a list to pick from. So pick one and start there. And if you're doing it by yourself and you don't think of yourself as a writer, then rephrase that topic as a question and answer the question while you record yourself. And gosh, I mean, the biggest hurdle there is a lot of people don't like the sound of their own voice. That's just something that, you'll just have to get over it, because the way you hear yourself on a recording, that's the way the rest of us hear you. The reason you don't sound like you is because our voice changes when it rattles around inside our own skull. And so you sound different to yourself than you do to anybody else. I've seen a couple things. So there've been a couple little things in the chat thingy. Oh, good. Somebody shared the link. I didn't name an actual website to talk about cornerstone content. If you Google the phrase cornerstone content, you will have enough material to read about cornerstone content to last you the rest of your career. Lots of content marketers have written some really good things on it. It's just basically, I would use that as sort of a way to prime the pump when you do the brainstorm exercise, so that you make sure you're getting some of that content, that cornerstone stuff, into the mix. Right? Do a little keyword research, do a little bit of reading on cornerstone content, then go back and do the brainstorming exercise, so that you can have that as sort of a little starting point. Okay. And by the way, I saw somebody else, the 6-page document on its own won't help you come up with content. It's just it's just 6-line sheets. You have to watch the video. Yeah. And the video has all the instructions on how you're going to put stuff in all the blank lines on that page.
It is a Jedi mind trick. Yep. So, let's see here. When I noticed that maybe you could talk a little bit more about kind of aggregating some content to make new content, like one of the slides you were talking about. It kind of struck me when you were talking about
curation approach.
Yeah, like you're doing like storytellers, and I notice a lot of the books that I read, the business books I read, they always include stories. So it seems to me, I'm assuming there's kind of a process where you start with simple content, and as you collect that and build that whole library, you can aggregate it into other things, other sources, and then you kind of build things up that way.
Well, I mean, you can certainly mix and match, right? You don't have to just be a storyteller or just be a technician. You can do all of those things. And I'm not sure, David, if you're asking about curation or some other.
I guess once you once I guess repurposing is another word. I mean, if you have blog posts, I mean you don't want to use them once. I mean, that is like core content for something bigger. Maybe I mean, you would put it together as a white paper or something like that. So it's sometimes some of this content is not one and done. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. The exception being Cornerstone. I mean, that's kind of done. But if you're going to go down this path of providing a stream of content, right? If it's good, then people want more. Mm-hmm. I've even talked to people about like if you're starting a podcast, one of the best strategies is you don't share any of it till you've got like a dozen episodes. That way, when somebody likes the one that you just put out, they can go and see that, oh, I missed 10 of them. And so now I've got a way to really get them involved and kind of bonded to me, before
That's a
you
great
lose them
tip.
waiting for the next one.
That is an awesome tip. On that topic, talk a little bit about the steps, like looking for and kind of putting this whole process together, where if I needed somebody to interview me to kind of get the ball rolling.
If you need so I mean, that's a service that we provide.
Okay.
But if you need somebody to just do that for you, I mean, a good do-it-yourself way is exchange services with somebody, right? Maybe there's a person in the same position you're at in another agency or in another state, and you find a partner and say, all right, I'll interview you about your topics and you interview me about mine, and then exchange the recordings and go from there. I mean, it's really about just having somebody. Sometimes a conversational approach is easier than turning on the dictation button in Word and just speaking into a blank screen. That can be a little intimidating as well. But man, we're all good at having conversations, right? If
Right.
I asked you a question like what are the things people don't understand about I don't know, PPP loans, that you might not be the right guy for that, but we could have that conversation, right? And you'd be comfortable with that. So sometimes conversational approaches are better than just sitting down and pounding out words at a keyboard.
Yeah. So when creating content for a tourism agency, should they write as though it's coming from me, my organization, or just a reporting style?
Boy, that's a really good question. I did some work with the Tasmanian Tourism Organization years ago, an Australian state, and similar thing. If you can't get people to actually help with it, I think a reporting style would probably be best, because you can then tell somebody else's story, right? You can actually involve tourists. I would rather hear stories from actual tourists who experienced whatever you're promoting than I would from the people that are there, right? I would want to actually get some of that incorporated. We tend to believe, it's almost like reviews. So I think you could merge the two, do a reporting style where you actually do some interviews with people that experienced what it is you're trying to get other people to do.
Mm-hmm. Somebody wants to know about, should you embed keywords in the blog?
And I've got a private question from somebody that's asking about keywords. Keywords, it's a search engine optimization term, and it's basically what I want to be found for. So if I'm a local plumber in Tucson, Arizona, if somebody goes to Google and types in plumber Tucson, I want to be found for that. It's really competitive. The challenge is finding. Gosh, who would I point you to? If I send you to an SEO person, they're going to want a lot of money from you to answer that question. I would send you to Google to search, look for keyword tools and put your category in. And really what all the keywords are, we want to be found when people type these words into Google. Those are your keywords.
Yeah.
And the more competitive they are, the harder it is to be known for them. But it's still important. They're important to help Google understand what your site is about.
Yeah. Patty wants to know about the person interviewing you. Do they have to have a good understanding of your content, of your business, or could you just get some other good voice, I guess, or ask you?
So that depends. If you're marketing to consumers, I think sometimes it's better that they don't understand, right? So that they don't. If I'm interviewing you with the idea that the audience are just consumers, I'm not going to let you use the jargon that you use inside your business, right? On the other hand, if we're doing business to business, and the consumers of the content already understand the jargon, then I think it's probably better that you maybe have a little bit deeper understanding of the content. So it's sort of like we count on business reporters in the Wall Street Journal to write about business and stock ideas. We look for a science reporter to just because it's more difficult for somebody that's not well versed in it, and they may ask the wrong questions, and they may they may not know what to ask. So it just depends on the audience. And I still believe what I believe about business to business. And I think there's a place for using the jargon and the vernacular of your industry, but not if you're facing the general public. You need to kind of dumb it down. And sometimes the best way to dumb it down is to make sure that the person doing the interviewing is as dumb as the consumer. I shouldn't say that. Consumers aren't dumb. Don't record that.
Well, it looks like that's all the questions we have, and we're a little bit past the top of the hour there. So Dave, I really want to thank you for coming today and creating that shortcut blogging tool. And I encourage everybody to go check that out. It's awesome. And hopefully you'll come back and visit us again. I'll probably have you on as soon as possible, because this has been.
I'd be delighted. And if you want other topics, like I said, there's 60 of us. We could find somebody that could cover just about anything you want to talk about.
Awesome. This is a big topic, and I just want to say from everybody that's been out there that's kind of commented, as you can see, everybody really loved what you talked about. So thank you so much.
I appreciate the opportunity, and nice to you guys stay warm out there.
Yeah.
Come to Tucson.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you next week. And Dave, take care there in Tucson, and stay safe and warm, everybody. Goodbye.